What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. About a month ago, I did a video where I built the 6 coolest cities in the Star Wars galaxy as Lego Star Wars Mocs. And it began an awakening of a new interest for me, and that is micro-scale builds. This time around, I'm going to be building the 6 hottest vacation planets in Star Wars. Not really. Most Star Wars planets are not places you want to go for spring break. What's really happening is I am challenging myself to build the 6 coolest planets, in my opinion, in the Star Wars galaxy as Lego Mocs. You all know the drill, but if you're new here, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button and let the building begin. These Mocs aren't in any order of coolest to not coolest or anything like that, but first is a planet I'm sure we would all love to visit if it didn't have a giant hostile Imperial base. And that is the tropical paradise of Vader's private beach, the planet of Scarif. This planet was shown during the end of the movie Rogue One, complete with sandy beaches for the stormtroopers to play on, calm sapphire blue water, and lots of shade from palm trees. This place looks straight out of a resort in the Bahamas. I'm building the area with the Imperial base since that is really the only place we see. It is comprised of a large tower with trams on tracks running out over the water to various bunkers on the islands. My vast horde of trans light blue cylinders really came in clutch for this one, as most of the Moc is water. I'm using light bluish gray tiles to represent the tracks running throughout the islands. I made sure to add the giant satellite dish we see on top of the tower the rebels used to beam up the plans for the Death Star. Having finished the tower, I didn't like how the sides looked, so I pulled it up and added in some small cheese slopes at the base. While very simple, I think this Moc turned out pretty good. I've wanted to build Scarif for some time, but considering how often it has been done on a large scale, this will probably be as much as I do with this planet for the time being. I added small cones and round plates to represent the foliage on the islands, and on the largest one, I even added a small bunker at the end of the tracks. I was pleasantly surprised to see I could connect the long light gray tiles to the islands and the base of the tower at an angle. Next, I am doing the unthinkable, visiting the sequel trilogy to build a planet I never thought I would do, Jakku. Definitely not, but I'm building a planet from the sequels, and that is Crate. Tall mountains with a terrain of contrasting white salt and red ground underneath make it a sight to behold. To create the red ground, I am throwing down stacks of red brick on their sides and building a rock wall at the back, leaving the center of it smooth for where the old rebel base will go. I noticed the mountains had white and red sprinkled throughout them, so I'm going to add some white and trans red bits for color. This frame is going to be twice as tall as normal because I didn't have any 1x brick and had to use 2x. Basically, I'm making a deep dish Moc. On top of the brick, I am placing down some white parts in all kinds of positions to make the terrain look cracked and allow the red to poke through, as well as adding a trench and some gun emplacements along it. This scene was one of the few bright spots of the sequels for me, and this planet with the red and white creates a unique color palette I don't often build in Star Wars. I added some 2x4 slopes to the rock wall to represent the large rebel base built into it, and added the giant drill the First Order uses to punch a hole through it. As I'm writing the script, I realized every trilogy has at least a little representation from the prequels all the way to the sequels, which is cool, since I usually dump Clone Wars content on you guys. This next one is my favorite build from this video and quite possibly depicts one of my favorite scenes from the original trilogy, the forest moon of Endor. That's right, I said moon. I know Endor is not a planet, but it's still really cool, and let's be honest, how many of you even know without looking what planet it belongs to? Since I'm doing Endor, I'm also adding a scene I've always wanted to build, the landing platform where Luke surrenders himself to Vader. So landing platform at the back, and one of Endor's most famous features, giant redwood trees everywhere. Now this is a mini Moc. I think it looks really good and really captures my favorite scene from the original trilogy. I don't know why I like it so much, to be honest. I really dislike the Ewoks who live there. Maybe it's because of my strangely deep and specific love for landing platforms. There were some yellow circles on the platform, so that is why I added yellow plate to it. Honestly, I wish I could have spent more time with this one. It's time to break out the water cylinders again, because I'm building Kashyyyk. Our first trip to the prequel era stuff. As a side note, if you're watching and find yourself outraged that I didn't include a certain planet to this list, check out the previous video I mentioned in the intro. The planet you're thinking of might be in that one, and I didn't want to build duplicates. This place reminds me a lot of the planet Pandora from Avatar. Lush jungles, large bodies of water. It even has the giant tree where the indigenous locals live and are attacked by a giant generic evil corporation. Wow, now I forgot which one I'm building. Kashyyyk is home to the mighty Wookiees, and I thought the beachfront that we see in Revenge of the Sith best represents the planet and what it has to offer. On the shore, I'm building a couple of giant trees, and off to the side, there's a giant rock wall. You guys know me, I had to squeeze as much rock work into this video as I could. In front of the trees, I'm building the little pylons that run out onto the water with some white foamy waves and breakers crashing up onto the shore. What would have been cool is if I included the giant Venador that lands down behind the trees, but that would have been too big to fit. But some clone turbo tanks would have been nice as well. This is another one of those tropical paradise type planets, although I don't know much about the local flora and fauna, so it could be another beautiful death trap. Kashyyyk is another one of those super cool but frequently done Mocs I get asked to build. Maybe I will someday, but if I were, I'd like to wait until I have the parts and space to include a giant section of a Venador. This next one is not easily recognizable, as we don't get to see very much of it because, well... Nonetheless, it is still a very cool looking planet, which was made more apparent in the Kenobi show. Out of all the planets I have seen, Alderaan is the most like Earth. The snow-capped mountains and pine forest, and seemingly lack of voracious monsters make it seem like a great place to live. In the center of the Moc, I'm adding a city made out of cylinders and cheese slopes to create the skyscrapers. I'm sure you've noticed by now, but some of these Mocs include cities or buildings of some kind, and some don't. While the focus of this challenge was planets, if there was some kind of prominent feature or city, I decided to include it just for fun and to make the Moc look more interesting. The mountain range around and behind the city also reminds me of where I live, as we are surrounded completely by mountains. Running out of the city, there is a river will be covered in studs, cones, and cylinders to represent the foliage. For some reason, I'm getting Emerald City vibes from the Wizard of Oz with this build. Alderaan was a place gone too soon, and I hope we get to see more of it in future Star Wars projects, although with how peaceful it is, I doubt we will get much more than references and conversations, but maybe it'll pop up in Season 2 of Endor. I don't have much to say about this Moc. I think it looks good and captures the landscape pretty well, but as far as crazy exotic planet goes, this one is definitely towards the bottom of the list. I had to save the most wild planet for last, full of color, weird plants, and some of the most dangerous creatures in the Star Wars galaxy. Felucia is a place best enjoyed from a great distance. It's basically a jungle of the most crazy shapes and colors you have seen. I'm going to start with some dark tan terrain and add a hill off to one side just to give this Moc a little bit more height. I will also add a road running through it, but it won't be easy to spot until the end. The main bulk of this build will be all kinds of trans-colored parts stacked, tucked, and connected to each other. I basically went on Bricklink and bought any weird-looking piece I could find in trans orange or blue, and I had some trans red stuff on hand from previous builds. If Candyland turned into a horror game, this is what it would look like. And some of the creatures native to this place are the Akle from Episode 2 and Rancors, like the one we saw in Return of the Jedi. I have been asked for a while if I will ever build this one on a large scale, and the answer is most likely yes, but who knows when. It's tricky to build this many different shapes and colors of plants on such a large scale. Because there weren't any good cities or structures to build besides the plants in this Moc, I didn't expect much, but the finished result looked surprisingly good. All the different kinds of parts blended together well to create lots of miniature looking plants, and the road is now much more visible. On the road, I placed some white studs to represent a patrol of clones, with bricks and cheese slopes being some ATTE walkers. The micro build fever is taking over. Even before this video was finished, I started planning the next one, which may be my favorite one I do so far. One thing that makes this scale so fun is you can build such large things like cities or giant ships in a more complete way without eating up tons of brick or space. It's almost like building a mini 3D map of something. Like I said, Endor was my favorite build, but let me know in the comments which one was your favorite, as well as if there were any planets you would have included in this video, and I will see you in the next one, but until then, happy building.